Hey everyone, I'm here in the radio room at Catholic TV with a special guest today. Olivia Colombo, creator of the To the Heights podcast, is joining me here today. Hey Olivia, welcome to The Gist.
Thank you.
Glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here.
So tell us about your podcast. How did you get started with that?
So a few months ago, I started recording here in the radio room. I actually had a podcast when I was in high school, which most people don't know. It only lasted like 2 episodes, and it was a project for a broadcast journalism elective.
It was an experiment.
It was an experiment.
Nice.
And it was called the Be the Change podcast, and it was interviewing young change makers. So I kind of took that whole idea and turned it into the To the Heights podcast, which is named after the quote from Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati, Verso Le Alto. Which just means to the heights.
I like how you say all that. That was really pro.
Thank you. But it's all about people who are reaching to the heights in their own life and kind of how to be a young Catholic in 2019 from people who are in all different walks of life. We have young nuns, we have really young priests, newly ordained priests. We have a bunch of high school boys who started a rosary group. We have some college kids, all sorts of different people who are just young and living the faith at their own stage in their own way.
Great, really inspiring stuff. How has been the experience creating a podcast?
It's been great so far. And I think it's funny that the whole point of the podcast was to create like inspirational stories. I really started it because my first semester at Boston College, I write for the Boston College Catholic newspaper, The Torch, and I had the opportunity to interview so many inspirational young Catholics. Like Sister Chelsea Bethany from the Daughters of St. Paul, and so many people like her in just covering different stories around the Archdiocese that I couldn't fit all of those stories into 500 words in a newspaper. Mm-hmm. So I knew that I needed a new format to share those inspiring people and their just authentic conversations and stories. So that's where the podcast came from. And I wanted to be able to share those stories to inspire others, but I've really walked away inspired by what these people have to say and the takeaways they have from their journey so far and what inspires them to keep going.
That's so great. I love that. That's how you know it's authentic,
yes.
Right? And that's what I love about podcasts, that they're great conversations like that.
Yeah, for sure.
So I am a huge fan of podcasts. I do a podcast myself called Girlfriends. I've been doing it for like 3.5 years. So as a new podcaster, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have or things you're struggling with.
Sure. How do you interact with your fans? And is there any way that you've changed your podcast based on the feedback of listeners or the interaction with people who listen?
Oh yeah, those are great questions. Yeah, so I interact with people through, people send me emails, so I'm always begging them for voiced feedback because I love to put their voices in the podcast. So I connect with them on Voxer, or they'll send me a voicemail by email. But then a new way I've been connecting is a Facebook group that's just for listeners of the podcast, and it's a closed group. So I like to think of it as like our safe place where people can connect with others who listen to the podcast and kind of connect that way. And then with feedback from people, I've really adjusted what kinds of topics I'm taking on. Sometimes I'll do a whole episode that's just based on somebody's question that, so I really like to be meeting the needs of the people who are listening.
That's super cool. I like the idea of a closed Facebook group for sure.
Yeah.
I have one more question.
Sure.
So what's one thing or something that you wish you knew when you were first starting your podcast and you were in season 1 like me?
No, I wish I knew to just relax about it, because I was super regimented and I had this format and I never strayed from the format and I had all these extra bells and whistles and things. I was trying to do too much, I think, early on. And really, I just wanted to have conversations. And then I realized as a podcast listener that that's what I like listening to, are just authentic conversations. So really simplified it. And for the production end of things, I was really happy when Ascension Press picked up my podcast because then I could just record and send and be done with it. Because some of that tech stuff gets really tricky, so looking for help with that. But you have that here at Catholic TV.
Yes, definitely.
So what's your favorite part about making a podcast?
I think it's been all of the people that I've met, for sure. I do really enjoy all of the editing and technical piece behind all of it as well. But it's definitely the people, and also the people that I've gotten to talk to afterwards. So not just the people I'm interviewing, but the listeners who have come out of the woodwork and told me how, I don't know, I had one guest early in the season tell me that his favorite book of the Bible was Job, and we had a really interesting conversation about Job. And then one of my listeners was like, I started reading the book of Job, and this is what I've taken away. Wow. So getting to interact with people who have actually been touched, even though there are only a few episodes out so far.
Oh, that's beautiful. You're really connecting with people. I think that's really a beautiful thing about podcasting.
Yeah, for sure.
So where can people listen in?
So we are on iTunes and Spotify. You can just search To the Heights Catholic TV, or we have a website, CatholicTV.podbean.com.
Nice. Okay, so people can check you out there and hit that subscribe button. It matters.
Yep, for sure.
Thanks so much for being with us today on The Gist, Olivia. I've loved our conversation.
Thanks for having me.